Hello everyone and welcome to the new episode about editing with Darktable. This time I would like to show you a few methods how to get a soft look of your photo, which can help the viewer to concentrate a bit more on the subject without get distracted by some small details. And that can also help you to give your scene a little bit different atmosphere. And as in the last episode, I will also use Sigmoid tone mapper for this episode, and also RGB primaries module for some color corrections and color adjustments, so you can be able also to see how can those modules be used in normal cases without some spatial light situations. Okay, let's get started. This will be our first photo, but before we begin, just one note: I'm using Sigmoid, as I've said before, but my own preset, which is nothing else than the preset that you also have in your list, smooth preset, and I've just added a bit more of contrast because I like that kind of contrast, and with that contrast we're getting a bit more saturation in the photo, so it's a nice starting point for me. Okay, let's start editing. As always, we will start with lens correction, denoising, and I think I also need to improve the vignetting of the lenses. So let's go there. Let's see, just a bit. Yeah. And I will also like to improve exposure, go a bit higher, because it was too dark. I was trying to avoid overexposure by taking the photo. And now we are ready to improve a little bit the photo even more. Now I would like to improve a little bit the texture of the photo, because in the local areas, or for example here and here, we have quite big difference in the brightness and also in the details. You may see the difference between shadows and other areas in small details is quite huge, and that makes the photo quite restless. So I would like to concentrate on this area as a main motive. So I would like to add a bit more contrast for that, but I don't want to add that much in contrast in the details. So practically what I need to do, I need to diffuse a little bit the photo. And for that we can use diffuse and sharpen module, which is quite easy. And we will use first and second order speed for that. You will see what happens if I go about a half and add some radius span, and immediately we have some diffusion. I don't want to go too far, also I don't want to use other speeds, because I'm getting then some kind of milky look. I don't want that. The first two order of the speeds are quite enough, and we can improve that even better. I can also, to improve the sharpness a little bit of the photo, we can also go with the central radius a bit higher. Let's say about there. Maybe you can better see the difference if I'm going here. And as you can see, now we have a bit more diffusion in the photo, and the difference between bright and dark areas, especially in the transition of those two areas, is not that much high. So as you can see, we don't have those sharp transitions now. You can also recognize that on the two people here or on the other areas. So let's go with a snapshot so you can see it even better. You see the difference. In this area, for example, we have almost all details also in the shadows because of the diffusion. And now we have lost a little bit of the global contrast, So we need to improve that. So I can use, for example, now column paths RGB and go a little bit with the brilliance sliders, play with those. And we have quite similar situation as before, but as you can see, now we have the main subject is much more prominent because the diffusion had tamed down the texture, and we concentrate a bit more on that. So let's improve it even better. What I also can do, that diffusion has also diffused not only the brightness but also the colors around, and we can tame that, or we can improve that if you go back to the diffuse and sharpen and use blend mode lightness. Now we only influence the brightness and not the colors, so the color stays the same. And let's see how it looks now. And you can see now the contrasts in this area, not the contrast, but the brightness is bit lower than in the middle because of that diffusion. It's quite nice improvement. And now we can also improve a little bit of colors, and for that I will use RGB primaries module. What I would like to do, I will like to have the sky a little bit more cyan. So we will go to the blue hue, and before I do that, let's turn on the vectorscope so you can see what happens. And now you can use blue hue and go a bit in direction of cyan. And what I don't want to lose the yellows here, so I will also use a red hue and go to the yellow. And you see now the difference. We tighten a little bit that whole range of colors in this direction. Maybe I can also go a little bit with greens in direction of the cyan. Something like that, so that the greens and also a bit the yellows are going a bit more into the orange. So let's see. You'll see there's a quite subtle difference, but it makes the photo a bit more interesting color-wise. And maybe I can also add a bit more saturation, not that much. Now it looks quite a bit more as analog film. Not that much, but a bit more. It's quite subtle difference, as you may notice, but it makes a huge difference in the look of the photo. I mean, it's quite subtle change, but it makes a big difference in the look of the photo. And I don't think we need to do anything else here. The quite important thing is by adding the diffusion, we didn't lost the sharpness of the photo. The sharpness stays the same. We can add one more instance of diffuse and sharpen just for sharpening. So I will also only use one of the sharpening options here, for example this one, and I think we're good. Yeah. Let's go back. And by the way, if you use a diffuse and sharpen module, sometimes you will not able to see, you only be able to see how it exactly it looks if you go to the 100% view. But since the last version of the Darktable, or better to say after the last version of the Darktable 4.6, and the new master version has immediately one nice improvement, and in the next version of Darktable you will also have the full screen or high quality processing button here, and if you click that, now the image in the screen here in the canvas will be processed fully without restrictions, and you need to wait a little bit, and now you can exactly see how the image will look like by exporting it. So now we can exactly see all those changes in the photo. So let me see. Yeah, that's quite nice. But because you have that now, that full processing mode, it can be quite slow. So be careful only to use it when you want to see how the exported version will look like, and not to use it all the time. If you don't have, for example, a computer with quite high options, a good graphic card and so on. And now I will disable it, and I think we are done with this one. Okay, let's see the next example. So by this one, we will also like to add a bit more soft contrast, especially in this area. But before we can do that, I will first apply some corrections and also a bit more brightness. Let's say we can go about there. I don't want to go too high because I will imply another method of diffusion. And this time we'll also use diffusion sharpen module, but this time we can use the preset, bloom preset. And you see how that looks like. Maybe go a bit higher with the radius. And this time I will also add quite a lot of iterations so that we have practically the blurry photo, something like that. And now we can use blend mode multiply. And of course, the photo looks quite dark, but we can improve that blend mode a bit better. We can go to the fulcrum area and add some brightness there. Maybe something like that. And you don't want to have 100% opacity on this effect because it's quite huge. So let's go about there. And the next thing what I would like to do, I will also like to improve the brightness of this area a bit more. So I will add one more exposure module, mask that area here. Something about that. And I don't want to influence everything, but just a little bit of green area here, that grass in the foreground. So let's mask it also. But first I'll add some exposure to be able to see the mask a bit better, what gets masked. So let's say we're going there and there, about there. Of course we need to feather that thing so that we don't lose the details. And let me see before and after. Yeah, that is a quite nice improvement of that area. And we can also use now color balance RGB to improve the contrasts even better. Just a bit. And maybe add some saturation. And as you can see now, we have nice and soft contrast of the photo, and we concentrate our view in this area, which is already illuminated. And I have enhanced that illumination even more. And now we can see that area a bit better. And what have we done is use that diffusion to similar like low pass filter. So that means we don't want to enhance the details by adding that kind of contrast. And you can see if I go with radius span down, what that means. If we just add the multiply blend mode, we will have that kind of the harsh look, what I don't want. I want that nice and soft look. And of course we can also improve that diffusion by adding a bit more central radius. Let's say something like there. And I think we could also go a bit higher with exposure, just a tiny bit. something like that. And also a bit lower with opacity. Now that's just a bit of the fine settings. Okay, something like that. To be able to see the difference, let's go with exposure here. Or let's see here, snapshot, and to the last step. And as you can see, it's quite a huge difference. And we have now nice focal point in that area here, which is quite important, and have also nice colors. I could, though, also improve the colors a little bit. I don't want to have, for example, that much yellow in the greens, so we can also use the RGB primaries module to improve also that. So first thing what I would like to do, I would like to separate that red from the green a little bit to go away from the yellow. Let me see how that looks here in the vectorscope. So what I would like to do, I will use the red hue and go bit to the magenta direction, so to get rid of the yellow in the red, and also use a green hue and move the green towards cyan. And I hope you can recognize a bit the difference. And also we have lost a little bit of saturation, so we can use red and green purity to record that purity of those two channels. And the change is quite subtle, but you see a big difference actually between the greens and the reds in the surroundings. So, do we need to do anything else? We could, though, as for this is a shot, hand shot from the camera, so I have a little bit of blurring, motion blur or something like that. Well, maybe I could add one more instance for just for sharpening. Let's see, could we improve that bit better? I don't know. Let's use some other sharpening options. Yeah, something like that. Works okay. Not that much. I'm not a fan of the sharpening because you don't look the photo 5 centimeters from the canvas. You want to have impression a bit from a bit higher distance. Okay, so one more before and after, just to be sure that you see the difference. Yeah, that's now quite nice. We have nice depth of the scene now. Okay, next example. Okay, let's play now with this one. So first, lens correction, denoising, and I will go with exposure quite high because the main subject here is this area with those plastic boats in foreground. I think we can go even higher, but I need to improve a little bit the dynamic range, so I can use tone equalizer and maybe some whatever. Let's use compressed shadows, highlights, guided filter, how that looks like, and also adjust the mask. Yeah, that will be okay. We can go even higher with exposure now and adjust those two things, and that's about good as starting point. And what here is important to be able to see that area and not be too much distracted from the background here. So to be able to do that, first we can tame down that local contrast, and now we can use for that also a contrast equalizer. So let's use a contrast equalizer for that and go to the Luma tab and just lower down a bit, maybe something like that. That Luma, and as you can see now, we have immediately quite a softer look and don't get distracted by that much details, that much higher contrast areas everywhere. But what I would also like to do, I would like to separate that foreground here from the background even more. And now we can use also diffuse and sharpen module. This time I will bring it above contrast equalizer because I would like to apply that effect after contrast equalizer, after the softening of the texture. So I'm going up with diffuse and sharpen, and now I will also use only those first two order speeds and add some diffusion, maybe even more as there's one, maybe two. Also the central radius a little bit. I would like to have that hazy look, but I will like to apply it only on the background. So we also need to add some mask. So let's use gradient mask for that, and maybe start here. Something like that. And we have immediately, just with that fog or mist, we have a nice separation between the foreground and the background. And I would also like to add some color to that background so that we mimic that atmospheric diffusion. And what we can do now, first I would like to add a bit saturation or a saturation so that we can see the colors a bit better. Something like that. And now I would like to apply RGB primaries after that saturation and change the color of that area, of the misty part of the area. So now we can use the same mask as diffuse and sharpen. I will use raster mask, excuse me, and I would like to give that area a bit more colder look, a bluish look, so that we mimic that atmospheric change of the color. No, not the blue. So I will go with the hue into the blue and add some purity there. Let me see. About there. Yeah. And now, as you can see, we have also changed a little bit the color of the background, but it is too much saturated. So I will add the next instance of color balance RGB and desaturate also that area. So let's also use raster mask for that, diffuse and sharpen, raster mask, and just desaturate a bit the highlights and maybe also midtones. And now we can go to primaries again and add a bit more purity so that we have that atmosphere. Oh no, I need to play a little bit back and forth to be sure what kind of color I would like to have. Yeah, that looks much nicer. So let's see before and after. So that is how we started, or we can start with tone equalizer. And you see now the difference. We are concentrating much more on that foreground. Okay, what also we can do is to brighten a little bit the foreground. So I will use exposure module one more, go above tone equalizer after that dynamic range adjustment, and also use gradient. We need to disable snapshot for a moment and toggle the polarity of the mask so that we only masking the bottom part, and now add some exposure. And you can see now we can nicely see the foreground. Maybe we can also play a little bit with details in that foreground. Maybe we can enhance a little bit local contrast there. So we can use one more instance of diffuse and sharpen after all those instances, and also apply, or we can use some preset. I don't want to play that much. So what we have, a local contrast, and only apply it on the bottom part. So we can use, actually we can use raster mask for diffuse and sharpen first version. And of course we need to toggle the polarity of that mask. And now we are applying that a local contrast only of the bottom part. So let's see now, before and after. That looks much better, because now we have separated our main subject in terms of the details and also in the terms of the color from the background, from that rest of the scene. So we can see that it is nice lake and that we have nice tree area in the background, but that background doesn't fight our foreground here, our area with those boats in the foreground. So you see how you can improve the look or also the mood of the photo with diffusion. Okay, do we need anything else here? No, I think it's enough. Okay, the next example. This will be our last example for this episode. And before we can judge what needs to be done, let's first make some improvements, lens correction, denoising. And we also need to brighten this whole scene a little bit. And this time we have, because we have backlighting situation, we have also quite harsh shadows and contrasts, so we can also use sigmoid, go down with the contrast, because we don't need that much contrast in this kind of situation. And now is the question, how can we improve that even better? So as I have said, we have backlight situation and also direct sunlight, and those two things combined makes those kind of scene quite difficult. As you can see, we have that quite difficult textures here, difference between bright and shadowy areas in the details. So it looks like the scene on the moon. And we need to give that scene a bit more atmosphere. We need to add some diffusion to soften that harsh situation. Okay, so first thing what we need to do, I will like to adjust the white balance, or maybe also give the cold scene a little bit warmer look. So let's play a little bit with color calibration until we are satisfied. And to be able to judge it a bit better, I will also go to the color balance RGB and add some saturation so that we can judge the colors a bit more better. We can readjust that later. I just want to see what kind of colors we have here. Okay, I think we could also go a bit more up with the saturation, not with the saturation, excuse me, with exposure. And now we have prepared our scene for diffusion. So let's start somewhere. Let's use that as a snapshot to be able to compare the scene before and after. And of course, we can also use, as this last example, the procedure will be quite similar. So we'll use contrast equalizer first, just to soften the texture a tiny bit. And this time, I think I will go a bit higher here, so I don't want to lose the sharpness in the high frequency details, but I would like to tame down a little bit of rough areas. Let's say something like that. And we have immediately only with contrast equalizer we have immediately improved the texture of the scene, and the differences between shadows and highlights are not that much high. We have now oversaturated area, but we will leave it for a moment. And now I will also add more diffusion with diffusion sharpener module, of course, after that contrast equalizer thingy. And similar to the last time, I'll go maybe only with two or first and second order speed and add quite a lot of radius span and maybe a bit of central radius, not that much. So that we have something like that. But this time, I don't want to have the diffusion on every brightness area. So I would like to reduce that only on the brighter area, or maybe better to say, I would like to exclude the darkest shadows so that we have the diffusion in the midtones and highlights and not that much in the shadows, something like that. And only with that, we have already some kind of, as you wish, imitating some kind of diffusion filter. And the scene is already quite improved. But what I would also like to do, I would like to brighten a little bit that area here on Add Some Vignette. So let's use one more instance of exposure module and use drone mask. I need to disable snapshot and just add real quick a bit more brightness in that area, which is important. And because we have added that brightness, we also increasing the diffusion there, because we have disabled or we have reduced the diffusion only to those areas and not in the shadows. So it looks already much better. So let's play now with color balance RGB. Let's add some contrast to the scene. Not that much, maybe to be careful not to go too far. Okay, let's see the before and after. And we have already given the scene quite nice diffusion, but we can improve it even better. I will now play a bit more with the colors in color balance RGB. What I would like to add in the highlights, I would like to add a bit more yellow, so to have that nice autumn sun color. Maybe also just tiny bit of the red in the shadows. Not that much. But now we need to improve the saturation. It's now quite oversaturated, so let's go down with all those sliders here. Maybe to saturate a little bit the highlights and improve the shadows, saturation of shadows, and maybe midtones, something like that. So I would say that looks quite nice. So let's see before and after. And now you can recognize that in this area and also in this quite nicely. If you look before and after, we have now nice diffusion there. But I would also like to reduce that diffusion only on that upper part, on that area here. So let's improve the mask of the diffusion sharpen and also add behind that reduction in the parametric mask. We can also use gradient. And let's say let's start here so that we don't diffuse the bottom part of the photo. So have not natural transition. You can see now only this part had that diffusion, and that improves the look of the photo quite a lot. What we also can do, let me go and play a bit more with color balance. So let's go a bit more up with highlights here and maybe midtones. And now our biker, oh, I have disabled. Let me go back. What is the, oh, where is it? Here, I think, yes. I have disabled or deleted snapshot, so let me go back. So as you can see, when we look at the biker, all these areas are not that dark anymore. It's quite nice. We see all details, and also the shadow here is not that harsh. And this gives nice, bit more misty, foggy impression. And what we also can do, I can go to the 4 ways tab and increase a bit global offset thingy. So to give the photo impression of the increasing of the black point, and the photo looks even smoother. Of course, you can also do that in sigmoid. For example, you can use target black. Maybe we can play with target white a little bit. So let's lower the target white to give the photo that analog look. I can play now for hours. Okay, but I think you can now see how huge the improvement is in the photo just with those few additional diffusion steps. So, by the way, let's try now to see the difference when we go to the full thing mode. I think we need to wait quite a lot because I have diffusion shaper module on and other things which could slow down the process. And now you see how it actually looks like. It's quite nice. Ah, I like that. It's nice and soft, but I think it's oversaturated. So let's go back in normal mode, because I only wanted to judge how diffusion looks like, but I think it's oversaturated. So let's go back, saturation a bit more down. Okay. So this is quite nice improvement. So let's add that full processing thing, just one more. And wait a bit. And I think it takes some time. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I think that's enough for this episode. I would like to make one more, because we have a few other methods which can be quite interesting for you, and so I will make one more. But for this one, I think it's enough. You can try it at home. And if you have some questions, please be free to ask in comment section, or go to the pixel.us discussion forum and ask your questions there. Okay, thank you for watching, and until the next time.